Under a first-year head coach at your UMass Boston Beacons. Lots to get into, so let's get into it right now. Don't go anywhere.
I'm the first undergraduate alumnus to lead this university. I'm very proud of that. I was literally able to transform my life because of the University of Massachusetts, and I want that for every single student that walks through the door.
And we welcome you back, getting you ready for this matchup between the Huskies of Southern Maine and your UMass Boston Beacons. This is a series that goes back all the way into the 1980s, and for a long time, it was entirely dominated by Southern Maine. The former creams of the crop in this Little East Conference. They haven't won a conference title since the mid-2000s, but if you look at the series history, Southern Maine started it 64-0 against UMass Boston. Things have changed in recent years. The Beacons have won 9 of the last 12. That's all of their conference wins over Southern Maine in that time period, including the last time out. We'll bring you the highlights from that game a couple of years ago in just a minute. But we want to look at the conference, or the matchup to watch in this conference bout. And it's a rarity. It's a battle between two bigs. On one side for Southern Maine, you have Victoria Harris, the only player on the team that averages in double figures. She's the reigning LEC Player of the Week after 3 double-doubles in a week that they won one against Plymouth State. They lost the 2 games previously. She is going to go up against Vienna Monesteem. Monesteem can put up a lot of different numbers, but her major contribution today is going to come up in the defensive end. She is an elite on-ball defender. We've seen her defend against smaller guards. Now we'll see what she can do against Harris, one of the bigger players and someone who is clearly the focal point of the offense for Southern Maine today. We will go more into the matchup between Monesteem and Harris as we go through our pregame, but we do want to bring you back a couple of years ago, the last time these two teams met here inside Clark Athletic Center Gymnasium. We've mentioned the Beacons have won 9 of the last 12 against Southern Maine, and they won this one. Let's take a look. And we welcome you back inside Clark Athletic Center Gymnasium. Mason Stouff now joined by my broadcast partner Milton Posner. And we've got a lot to get through. We've got about 6 minutes or so until the teams retreat to their benches and we get this one underway. So Milton, as we get into this one, we talked about this fantastic matchup between two teams that at one point you'd say it was a rivalry, but we know the numbers. For a long time it wasn't. And now things have switched the other way, and UMass Boston has been the team that's had the better of the Huskies over the last half dozen years or so. But these are two teams in transition. You have one team in UMass Boston under a first-year head coach that, I mean, the number of different rosters that we've seen posted on the beaconsathletics.com website, along with a Southern Maine team that has shown flashes this season, but is certainly not the team that we saw in the early 2000s where they were running the gambit in this conference. It's in for an interesting matchup tonight.
Yeah, and that's why you look at the standings and you see they're remarkably level. Both teams coming into this one with a losing record in the overall slate. UMass Boston at 6-10, as you can see. The Southern Maine Huskies coming in at a much lower 5-12. They got some more games in, but they're both at an even 500 in conference play. Both of these teams looking to make that last push for favorable seeding position in the LEC tournament. And they've both got some key contributors here. You talked about Harris coming in on the Southern Maine side. Meg Dixon, of course, going to feature very prominently on the UMass Boston side. But these teams a little bit more level than they've been in years past when, as you pointed out, one or another was dominating.
We take a look at the team stats coming into this one. And you can see these are two very evenly matched teams on paper. We certainly expect it to be fairly evenly matched on the court as well, both in terms of records, stats, and personnel. These teams are similar in a lot of ways. The one major difference, however, is that the Beacons are a much more potent three-point shooting team. Meg Dixon loves to launch from three. She is a big in terms of her size, but she loves to play the guard spot. She can handle the basketball, and she will launch from three. Victoria Harris, on the other hand, does all her damage on the inside, not a three-point shooter, and it will not be necessarily a Dixon-Harris defensive matchup, much more likely that Monesteem-Harris matchup that we featured in the opening. But the big thing that the Huskies like to do is turn over the basketball in terms of the opposition. They are second in the conference, both in taking care of the basketball themselves as well as forcing turnovers on the opposition. UMass Boston has had a problem at times with turnovers. They cannot do that today.
Yeah, and this is about controlling pace. It's about controlling possessions. It's about preserving and defending your momentum. You can see the numbers. 21.5 turnovers per game is not going to get it done against a Southern Maine team if they decide to come to play today. But that three-point margin is important. And to your point, Meg Dixon, you don't necessarily want her defending the other team's best player. You want her to save some of that energy for the offensive end, where she is one of the difficult matchups in recent LEC history. There's not a whole lot you can do sometimes about someone of her size who can play in that many different areas of the court.
We take a look at the player stats. Meg Dixon will feature prominently in these, of course, for UMass Boston. You can see she leads the conference. That 15.7 not only leads UMass Boston, but leads the conference. But her name features 4 out of those 6 categories. Not only does she score with tremendous quantity, but she does it with great quality as well, as she leads the team in both three-point per shooting percentage. And if you put her at the line, she will knock them down. You'll know that if you watched that game a couple of weeks back against Castleton, she set the all-time single-game record from the free throw line with those 34th and 35th points. Carrie Ann Farina can distribute the basketball as well. And Jashari Green, great off the dribble drive. It's no coincidence that she leads the team in field goal percentage, because she can take teams off the bounce. Not a three-point shooter, but great off the hop. And Victoria Harris leads the team in points per game. She's very efficient on the inside. But this is Southern Maine team where Harris can do a lot of things, but they get contributions from a lot of different players as well. Nobody except for Harris averages in double figures, but that's okay for them sometimes.
Michelle Rowe would be the next one that you'd look at here. Good at both rebounding and scoring the ball, 9 and 5 points and rebounds respectively. One of their only other players that will primarily play in the front court alongside Harris. And despite not so much on the great perimeter shooting for her, an outstanding clip at the free throw line, somebody you can't really afford to foul. 90% clip, easily first in the conference among players with enough attempts to qualify. Watch out for her as well. Also taking a look at Amy Fleming, just knocking on the door of that double figure per game scoring mark here. So Southern Maine, it's a little bit more evenly distributed than it might be for the Beacons with Dixon and Green up front. We'll see how it manifests tonight.
The coaching matchup today will feature Samantha Norris, her 7th year, graduate of Colby College, and then went and got her master's degree at Smith, where she was an assistant coach from 2010 to 2012. She's also featured at the D1 level as the director of basketball ops for Vermont, but her most recent stop was as the head coach of her alma mater. Meanwhile, for UMass Boston, of course, Heather Jacobs in her first year, originally a graduate of Franklin Pierce. She's been an assistant coach at Norwich, where she started her coaching career, but her most recent stop, the most notable one, building that D1 program out at Wagner. The teams are lined up, so we will take you into the starting lineups in just a moment. But first, we will pause briefly as National Anthem will come first. Then it will be starting lineups, and then we'll bring you our keys to the game as we get you ready for tip between the Huskies and your Beacons.
Something I discovered in myself is that if I have a goal, then I can accomplish it.
It's a well-rounded experience. At a Division III school, you primarily a student athlete, so the school is really shaped around you developing yourself as a complete individual.
It helps a lot that you have a family with your team that can guide you.
I just wanted to get good grades and to do well, but it also made me realize that I have a lot of career goals.
You're there to get a full college experience, not only participate in your sport, but participate in things outside of that, and it's all about growing as a person.
My coaches have helped me with figuring out who I really am. Their lives are dedicated for us to succeed.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
National anthem has been completed, and now we take a look at the starting lineups. First, for the visitors from the University of Southern Maine, taking the short trip down, about an hour and a half, 2 hours or so, depending on the bus ride, from the southern side of the most northeastern state of the Union. And it is a 4-guard, 1-center lineup. The only other player that can play the forward position by trade is Michelle Rowe. You heard Milton mention her in his opening just a few minutes ago. She'll come off the bench, but it's Maria DeJevico along with Amy Fleming, the only other player that you really expect the offense to run through besides Victoria Harris. Jackie Luckhart, the grad student, provides that primary facilitating role, as well as the senior grad student leadership. Ashley Aceto and Victoria Harris completing the starting 5. Now we take a look at your UMass Boston Beacons. Paige Olivier will not be featured in here. She joined the team only after the first semester, so we don't have a video for her, but let's take a look at your other 4 under head coach Heather Jacobs.
Megan Dixon, senior shooting guard, Hanover, Massachusetts.
I'm Carrie Ann Farina. I'm a junior guard from Arlington, Mass.
Hi, my name is Vienna Modesty. I'm a sophomore forward from Framingham, Mass.
Hi, my name is Sunny Green. I'm a sophomore guard from Brewster, Massachusetts.
So you see the 5 of Dixon, Farina, Olivier, Monesteem, and Green as we pull up our keys to the game. I think we probably already mentioned one. It's not included in there, but I would say don't turn the ball over to a Southern Maine team that loves to force the turnover is probably my key to the game. But Milton, why don't you take us through these other 3 and what the Beacons have to do to be victorious tonight?
Yeah, the faster start's been a big one for them. They've often struggled to get off to that good shooting start. Sometimes it's a matter of shot quality. Sometimes it's a matter of they're just not falling. The balanced scoring. Meg Dixon is a lightning rod, and we know that. But getting a more balanced approach is going to give them a better chance of outlasting a Southern Maine team that will be doing exactly the same. And the better production from deep, always a bonus here, not just because of what it gets you on its face, but because you can spread the floor and in particular create driving lanes and room for Jashari Green to get downhill once she comes into the game.
Jeffrey Swerka having a final word with his players as Heather Jacobs stands next to the scorer's table. You see the Beacons going with about as large a lineup as they can. Meg Dixon will jump center, but you see Monesteem will be the tallest player out there. Jashari Green has size as well. But interestingly, the Beacons, as they do lose the tip here, Monesteem and Jashari Green, not your typical posts necessarily, though Monesteem will definitely be down there defensively. The Beacons go man-to-man to open things off. Driving inside and getting the block from behind was Monesteem.
And that was that defense you were talking about in the pregame, the height, the length, the ability of Monesteem to guard the guards as well as the big people.
Monesteem kicks over the top, just handled by Olivier. She launches from downtown, just off to the right side. Friendly bounce, finds its way to Meg Dixon, and she scores, and the Beacons are on the board first.
And give the credit there to Carrie Ann Farina making that play happen, creating the loose ball off the rebound.
Jackie Lockhart, the lefty, runs the point. Crosses over, gets back under her left, moves to the right, and lays it in. Nice dribble drive play from the grad student. And we're tied at 2.
And the Beacons have got to be careful about that blow-by there. There needs to be a back line of defense, whether it's Dixon or Vienna Monestein, but someone needs to be back there to defend the paint.
Olivier throws one up and gets it to go high off the window, and it drops in. The inside game working for both sides in the opening minute and 20.
And that's a bonus right there. Olivier is typically going to set up from beyond the arc. If she can get you some points on the dribble drive, that's an added bonus.
Lockhart crossing over again, throws it all the way to the other side. This one well off the mark from Fleming. Easy rebound for UMass Boston, and Dixon brings it the other way. Farina resets at the point. Monestein, she drives, gets the screen from Dixon. She's blocked on the way through by Harris. First interaction for Victoria Harris today. The Beacons still have it with 18 on the shot clock. Olivier from 3, yes.
And that is what Paige Olivier will do for you. Percentage is still on the rise here, but she has shown some flashes of dominant three-point shooting. Thinking about the 18 points she dropped in her Beacons debut a few weeks ago.
Just shoots 23% from downtown, but she's got the quick trigger, and she's got 4 points. Make it 5 with Dixon the other 2. Loose ball rebound. Lockhart trying to get inside again. Got the advantage, but couldn't finish. How about this drive from Farina, and she's fouled. Carrie Ann will head to the line for 2.
This is the fast start we were talking about just a minute ago in the pregame. UMass Boston up to a 2-possession lead right now, can make it a 3-possession lead just 2.5 minutes into the half. Or excuse me, into the first quarter, rather.
Something happened with the scoreboard above us. There it goes, back to 7-2. Farina at the line. Rims out the first. On the season, just a 57% shooter is Carrie Ann.
And this has been a little bit of a weak spot for UMass Boston here. Last place in the conference with about a 62% mark from the charity stripe.
Caitlin Sullivan is dressed tonight. Number 3 in white. She's normally the starting point guard. We haven't seen her the last week and a half or so, but she is dressed today. We have not seen her yet.
Same goes for Jashari Green, who's presumably going to be coming off the bench, even though she usually starts. Both of them should be their first game back from injuries.
Dixon on the ball, gets a hand in there and affects the shot. I think she got a block in there on Maria DeJeffico.
She's just tough to drive around. She's used to moving on the perimeter. She will slide to keep up with you, and she has the length to disrupt the shot.
Sunny Green picks up the dribble, goes cross pass. Olivier tried to drive, lost her dribble, finds Dixon, who's fouled. DeJeffico commits the personal.
It's a clever move right there from Meg Dixon. Likes to flash toward the top to receive the ball in a short pass or even a handoff that you can turn into a screenplay. Then recognizing when it's shut off and back cutting to punish the defender for overplaying the pass.
Dixon averaging just shy of 16 points per game after her single game scoring record day against Castleton as she drains the first. Became the first D3Hoops.com Team of the Week nominee from UMass Boston, going back now 7 years to Olivia Murphy in 2015. Murphy was nominated to that team twice in her Beacon career.
You know, talking with Coach Jacobs toward the start of the season, she mentioned Dixon, a player who hadn't played at that point since December of 2018 due to injury, that her resume was not equivalent to her resident status. I think it is now.
Harris gets double teamed inside. Long three goes off the back rim from Lockhart. Harris has not taken a shot through 3.5 minutes. That's exactly what Coach Jacobs and the Beacons would like. Farina to Olivier. Off the dribble, right-handed. Monestein to Trigger. Back rims as well. Rebound to one of the smallest players out there. Lockhart finds Fleming. Harris couldn't handle it in the short corner. She saves it as she goes to the ground. Fleming, Lockhart swinging around the perimeter to DeJeffico for 3. 3 straight back rims. Rebound Monestein.
The only shot Southern Maine has made is the only easy one they've gotten. UMass Boston doing a good job closing the shooters.
Beacons coming in off back-to-back losses against UMass Dartmouth.
That shot goes awry. Southern Maine counters the other way. Harris, there comes the double team, and they will get a blocking foul on Vienna. And Harris will head to the charity stripe.
And this will be a little bit of a sticking point with Montesteem, who has had some sporadic struggles with foul trouble earlier in the season. But so far, UMass Boston, that's only their first team foul. They've done a very good job defending without fouling here, sealing off the middle, using their height and length where applicable, and up until this moment, keeping Harris off the scoreboard. Harris coming into this one shooting 72% from the foul line. That's 7th among qualifying players in the LEC.
Second one goes down as well. 10-4 UMass Boston. Should correct myself as the Beacons are coming in after a win against, or a loss against Castleton. But before that, a 57-52 win against Plymouth State, the bottom dwellers of the conference. Dixon, quick trigger. First three-point attempt for Meg, but she gets it back. Another three on the way, another miss from Sunny Green this time. Dixon hounding the boards. The Beacons get 3 cracks at it, but cannot score.
As good a demonstration as any of the height advantages the Beacons have got here.
To Jeffico, no. Board comes to Fleming. She can't score. Dixon loses it out of bounds. Should be a fresh 20 on the shot clock as we are just past the midpoint of quarter number 1, and that should lead to our first media timeout. Beacons get off to the hot start. They've gone cold the last couple trips down the floor, but they still lead it 10-4 with 4:53 to go in quarter number 1. We'll be right back.
College has given me the flexibility to pursue my passions and my interests, and I've recreated my identity for myself aside from just being an athlete.
My greatest personal discovery has been that I am capable of doing things that I didn't know I was capable of doing.
To be able to study what I wanted to and continue to play the sport I love, all of those things came together very nicely in one package in Division III.
.452 to go in quarter number 1. First media timeout in the books. Beacons lead it 10-4. Mason Stauff alongside my broadcast partner Milton Posner. Milton, this is a Beacons team that's just 24 hours removed from a trip all the way down from Castleton, and yet they've come out the more sprightly of the two teams.
And energy's been a difficulty for them in some of the first quarter that they have played throughout the season. It's interesting that they've chosen this one. Maybe it's a rhythm thing. Maybe it's been a focus. Maybe it's just coincidence. But if you look at the way they're closing the shooters, the way they're hopping to the rebounds, they've got the early edge on the board, 6-3, 4 of those rebounds on the offensive glass. All the hallmarks of a team that's just expending more energy than the opponent.
Traveling, whistled against Sunny Green as Jashari Green checks in for Heather Jacobs. The last Southern Maine shot clanging off the rim from Michelle Rowe, who's into the game for the first time.
And if any of you at home want to play some prop bets here, how many travels are going to be called on that first step? They're very strict about it in LEC play. You got to make sure you put the ball down on the floor before you take that first step, and they will hold you to it.
Every year, the officials throughout the NCAA basically have a list of things that they're meant to focus on, as that one is drained by Jackie Lockhart. And one of those this year was reinforcing the travels. I'm not sure if that was necessarily what the officials needed to focus on, but here we are. And that is indeed what they're focusing on. And to Milton's point, back-to-back steps whistled against UMass Boston. Southern Maine's scored the last 5 as the Beacons have gone quiet over the last 3 minutes.
And those aren't the most destructive turnovers you can imagine, but it's still not ideal for the Beacons. These are unforced errors.
Sunny Green gets the block in there. And she will actually get the ball as well. So nice play by Green as she smacked the ball away from Lockhart. And then it went off of Jackie out of bounds to the Beacons.
It's a little bit of a gift there. I think that may have been off of Sunny Green, just off the fingertips as she swung her arm through, but UMass Boston getting the ball back.
Jashari Green posts up inside, turns, fires, and hits.
And for Jashari Green, it's less about a height advantage and more about a strength advantage. Did very well as the ball goes sailing out of bounds over the head of Maria DeGeffigo. But Jashari Green can seal position on the underneath, clear enough room to catch the pass, and then at that point, she's a good enough offensive rebounder that she will get multiple tries if she can't score at first. This is why she's dangerous. You add in the downhill drives, very difficult to stop.
Beacons aren't necessarily the best team in this conference. The record attests to that. However, they have some players that are very difficult to match up with as Farina tries to find Dixon and turns it right over to Ashley Aceto. We'll get back to the point in a minute as this one shot deep into the right corner. It's a 2 if it goes. It does not. Sunny Green tried to track it down, but the Huskies do instead. It's Michelle Rowe with it. Swinging it around the perimeter to DeGeffico. Decides not to hoist. Back to the right wing. 8 on the shot clock. Entry pass inside. Rowe kicks to the perimeter. This one looks well off. It is. Sunny Green again gets her hand on it, but again cannot track it down. Mid-range jumper goes back rim, and Olivier gets the board.
Magnificent passing on that possession. The ball didn't stick in any one player's hands.
That's a charge.
Oof.
Jashari Green went right through the defender, and we could hear the slap of player hitting the floor from here. It's Jackie Luckhart, the grad student from Londonderry, New Hampshire, who goes to the ground and will come out. But to finish my previous point, despite the fact that the Beacons are not necessarily the best team on paper, it is so difficult to draw a matchup with Meg Dixon, Jashari Green, and Monesteem. You have one player who can guard much smaller than her size, as this one taken off the dribble but missed. Great lane to the hoop, but couldn't be finished in transition by Aceto. Speaking of transition, this is Farina, and she can't score. But then you have Jashari Green, who has the size but can take you off the dribble, and Dixon, who can shoot from anywhere, as well as post up inside. So how do you match up sometimes against this Beacon team?
You expend as much effort as you can, make sure you're positioned as well as you can be, and oh my goodness.
How about that little nifty move inside? Temra Gould, the Manchester native, 5'4", averaging just 1.6 points per game, and there she gets both of them. Exceeds her season average on just that one little layup as Sullivan gets ready to check in.
And what you notice here is UMass Boston getting a little bit lazy with the passes on the perimeter. You saw the one by Farina that got picked off, led to an extended Huskies possession. And you can see that one getting poked out of bounds. UMass Boston got to tighten it up because the Southern Maine Huskies have very much seized the mantle, and you can see it there again, of the team that's jumping in the passing lanes, poking the ball loose.
Jashari Green tracks it down, and they're going to say she was out of bounds. With Sullivan missing the last week and a half, we hadn't seen her since she played the opening 2 minutes and then exited back against UMass Dartmouth on January the 31st. Farina had been forced to run the point. That's not her natural position. She likes to play off ball, sink into the corner where Sullivan can run the point. But with Sullivan out, Farina had to possess the ball a lot more, and she does average 4 turnovers per game. So got to be smart with the basketball. Sullivan drew contact but couldn't score. Ryla Gonzalez into the game, gets the rebound. She's great on the offensive boards but couldn't finish, and the Beacons have gone ice cold over the last 5 minutes. Lead has been cut to 12-9. Handling the basketball for Southern Maine is Gould. Gives it off to Ramsdell, off the dribble. She got some contact as well, but no foul against Olivier, and here comes Dixon.
Beacons have got to be careful. They're getting beat off the bounce way too easily here by these dribble drivers for the Huskies.
The three. Missed from Jashari Green, and the foul will send it down the other end of the court. It's been a clean first quarter for the most part. Just the third team foul against UMass Boston. 2 against Southern Maine, but after a bright start where the Beacons scored the first, or 10 of the first 12 points, Southern Maine has cut this deficit to just 12-9, and it is now looking like a much uglier and low-scoring first quarter. Gould on the pass through, gets the ball in the left short corner, got those pink shoes on, goes up, over and under, can't get it in, but there's the offensive rebound, and the reigning LEC Player of the Week is on the board. Victoria Harris scores for 2.
And that's not a good sign for UMass Boston here, that the Huskies have been able to hang tough without Harris on the board.
Dixon with the answer. Who else?
And that's the range you see from Meg Dixon, not afraid to step well behind the line.
3 seconds to go. They're going to have to trigger. This is Gould. Can she launch? Does she know how much time's on the clock? She does. And they're going to count it. Tamra Gould makes it 15-13 at the buzzer. We don't have instant replay. Well, we do up here, but we certainly don't down on the floor, so that basket will count. And Southern Maine ends on a high note.
And that's a really tricky play to gauge there. The officials talking it over, confirming, and they believe that they've got it right. I was thinking for that minute, oh, she doesn't know the clock. Gould does not know the clock. She's going to let this quarter expire with the ball in her hands. But she timed it absolutely perfectly with not a tenth of a second to spare. She gets this lead down to 2 heading into the break.
We'll take a brief pause and come back on the other side. Second quarter action from Clark. It's the Beacons 15 and the Huskies 13.
I'm the first undergraduate alumnus to lead this university. I'm very proud of that. I was literally able to transform my life because of the University of Massachusetts, and I want that for every single student that walks through the door.
Moving from Turkey, it was a rough journey for me because when you don't really speak the language that well and when you don't really fit in the crowd, it's very easy to disappear. But I decided not to give up, and UMass helped me.
Division III allows you to give yourself to other things.
Having that free time allows me to pursue the things that I want to pursue.
Division III athletics affords students the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport.
It allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
Second quarter action underway. We'll be sure to bring you in one of these next media timeouts. We'll take a look around Beaconville as well. But underway, second 10 minutes of action. Beacons had the 10-2 lead. It's been cut to 15-13. Sullivan, cross pass, gets inside, and Sunny Green, not sure if she stepped on the end line or the ball bounced on the end line, but either way, it's a turnover.
Yeah, it looked like the ball on the end line there, and UMass Boston's been having some difficulties with this. Started off taking very good care of the ball. Now that's their 6th turnover. Huskies have just 2.
Southern Maine on the season forces 21 turnovers, and an offensive foul goes the other way as Sullivan causes the turnover herself. Oh, they're going to call a block. She wanted a charge, and for a second there, I thought she got it.
That's one of those difficult plays there where Kat Sullivan is sliding mostly horizontally, but if they deem that you are not going backwards or that you didn't beat the defender to the spot, it was a very close one. And I think may have been that her heels were on the restricted area. Couldn't quite tell.
And as a result, Southern Maine completing the three-point play has their first lead of the game, outscoring the Beacons 14-5 since the opening 3.5 minutes. Carrie-Ann Farina off the dribble, pulls up just inside the free throw line. Line driver goes down.
That is a smooth-looking pull-up there. 2-motion shot, shooting it right at the apex of the jump. Takes some strength to pull that off, but Carrie-Ann Farina flexing the jump shot muscles early.
We trade the lead the other way. Beacons up 1. 1 minute gone, second quarter. There's another dribble drive inside, nearly tipped in, and there's the reigning player of the week, Victoria Harris, for another deuce off another offensive rebound.
We were talking about how they're covering the dribble drives. UMass Boston does not necessarily need to stay in front here. They can use the length to bother the Husky drivers from the side. They've just got to stay close enough. So we're going to get a foul here away from the ball.
They call a legal screen.
Yeah, going against Monesteem.
And that is her second. So Vienna Monesteem, who we highlighted in the opener as the most likely player to guard Harris inside, will most likely have to come out as Jashari Green gets ready to check in at the next whistle. There's another nice mid-range pull-up. The mid-range, the feature in this second quarter. And it's Gould, who had the buzzer beater at the end of the first, who hits that one from about 18 feet out. Sullivan gets hit from behind. First personal whistled against Southern Maine in quarter number 2, and here comes Deshari from Monestine.
And this has been a tricky game for Kat Sullivan, her first game back after missing a little bit of time with an injury there, and she is taking a beating. Cutting to the basket, trying to set up, draw charges. We got another pass picked off.
Turnover. The other way, good defensive work by Carrie Ann Farina to get in there and not foul Lockhart, who thought she got hit. We've seen a lot of fouls in these first couple of minutes. 3 fouls across the first 80, 90 seconds. And now we have a player down for Southern Maine, or at least getting up gingery, and it is Lockhart.
Lockhart, after already taking a big sort of bowling ball style hit from Jashari Green in the first quarter, kind of Kat Sullivan's opposite here. Both of them taking a lot of hits. A lot of them sending him down, some hard falls too, but they have persisted. They're staying in the game.
We got one a grad student in Lockhart and one the true freshman in Sullivan, but both do not shy away from contact, that's for sure. This is Gold. Kicks right corner, flipped inside to Harris. Goes up quickly and gets fouled. Sunny Green picks up the foul.
And you admire Sullivan a lot for being a freshman, yet being the leader, not just of the offense, but you can tell a very vocal leader on a team that's very freshman heavy, where you kind of need the first years to step up and be very vocal and be aggressive and unite the team when it's this new, especially when you have a first-year head coach to boot.
Harris makes her 3rd free throw of the day. Mentioned that she is the reigning player of the week with 3 double-doubles last week. 2 against UMass Dartmouth and 1 against Plymouth State. That's the 2nd time she has been given that honor this year. She was also named player of the week back in December.
Taking a look at the press here, it's forcing UMass Boston to burn a lot of clock.
They do not get across. And you can see a very frustrated Heather Jacobs saying, know the time, get across the line.
It was very, very close there. A matter of a 1/10 or 2 of a second, or whether that one was going to be called.
Beacons have gone from up 8 to down 5. It's 22-17 Huskies. Another double team, another finish through traffic, this time by Franny Ramsdell. Mentioned that Southern Maine can get contributions from a bunch of different players. Ramsdell now on the board, another player off the bench. Sullivan to Deshari Green, left corner, drives inside. Not sure if she lost it or passed it to Farina. Short corner jumper from Sullivan, off the back rim. Ramsdell with the board.
Southern Maine has tightened up the rebounding here. UMass Boston getting tons of offensive rebounds early. Now it's 1 shot per possession for them.
Ramsdell left her feet, tried to find Harris, threw the ball away. Dixon picks up her dribble, goes to Farina. Farina surveying the court on the right side, resets the offense, top of the key. Swings it left to Sullivan. Gets inside, the double team meets her, and she's bumped from behind, and I think they're going to get Franny Ramsdell with the foul.
And Kat Sullivan, like Monesteem, has got a couple of fouls here, so you want to be careful with her. You've seen her trying to play a more vertical defense here, but both of them kind of on the cusp of where you start worrying about foul trouble.
They got Gold for her 2nd, not Ramsdell, so she has to sit down. Ramsdell, or Gold, excuse me, has scored every single one of her points in the last 7 games that she's played this season. Talk about coming on strong late in the year. Farina had to force it. Nice rebound by Deshari. Oh, they're going to call her for over the back. Come on. I got to say, I like the hustle over 2 defenders to grab that rebound, and they get her for the personal.
That's definitely a borderline call right there. It's a little bit difficult when you're as physical as Jashari Green is, and when you do go over the back. But over the back itself is not a class of foul.
No, it's a push.
Yeah, it's always about, is it a push? Is it a hit? What are you doing here? I'm not exactly sure which element the refs thought she violated there.
How about that move? My favorite post move in existence. Spin right, fake up, get the defender in the air, duck inside, and finish off glass. Harris coming alive.
Takes a tricky bit of footwork there. Very nicely done.
Sunny Green tries to answer. Dixon has the 1-3. Outside of that, the Beacons have been ice cold from downtown. Speaking of a 3, that one missed off the right side by Franny Ramsdell. Sullivan comes the other way. The Beacons are now down 9. It's been a 17-point swing in just about 12 minutes of game time.
And what you're seeing here from Kat Sullivan, it's a little bit of a height limitation here, just 5'6", not puny by any measure, but she's trying to throw some kind of odd angle passes. She's trying to throw around running defenders with their arms outstretched. It's a little bit tricky for her when she's not doing it in a set state. And UMass Boston again struggling with these entry passes.
Olivier tried to launch it to Farina.
This puts you in a position where you're not necessarily fighting to thread the needle. You're not fighting to throw lobs over the top. You're not trying to throw cross-court skips. You're fighting just to get the ball in, and it's never a relaxed, in-rhythm way to play offense.
One of the things you're also seeing, you haven't probably heard the name Meg Dixon in a while. That's because Katie Bagley is fronting her everywhere she goes. Bagley hasn't touched the ball once on the offensive end, but it doesn't matter because her job is to defend Meg Dixon first and foremost.
And if you can neutralize her and play with 4 players on offense, you're content with that trade at this point. Remember, UMass Boston with Dixon leading the way, a little bit more top-heavy than this Southern Maine Huskies team, where the leading scorer is down a few notches in the conference leaderboard.
Dixon, Bagley, fronting her. Dixon off the dribble, gets inside, and I think that's, well, it was either going to be a travel or an offensive foul. It was going to be a turnover either way.
Or a carry for that matter. There was a very tricky sort of overhand dribble there that, even though it wasn't called, ultimately put Dixon in a position where she's trying to recover the ball as she drives, can't pay attention to where the defense is, gets called for the charge.
Southern Maine has scored 24 of the last 31 points as we hit the under 5 timeout here in the second. 4:52 to go. Beacons trailing by 9. We take a look around Beaconville. Lots of things going on tomorrow. The Boston University Valentine invite going on all day. Beacons were supposed to be up in downtown Boston last week, but because of another icy storm, not nearly as much as it was the weekend before, but still icy conditions, could not compete in their invitational last week, but they will be at Boston U for their indoor track meet tomorrow, and then women's hockey at Castleton at 6, women's hockey down the hall against Castleton at 6 at Edward T. Berry, and the men on the road up in Vermont at 7.
I was going to say, I'm calling that women's game, and if I've got to go to Castleton on short notice, we're going to have a problem.
I did have someone just text me about a few minutes ago asking if I could go up to Southern New Hampshire to call a game tomorrow. I was like, no, I can't be there at 1. I do have to work Super Bowl week.
Very nice.
Another nice finish inside, and Southern Maine is taking it to UMass Boston. They're doing it on the interior the way they want to.
It's a very porous defense here from UMass Boston. You have to wonder if they expend it, especially coming off of as Meg Dixon here drives to the rim and flails up a layup. You have to wonder if the energy lost from the game that they played yesterday is finally coming in here. We saw a very energetic first 5 minutes.
That's a nice play. Carrie-Ann Farina got her feet set about 10 minutes before Harris got inside and got bowled through, and that is the second on Harris. And so the Beacons essentially now, as Harris checks out, have 4 minutes and 11 seconds to get right back in this ball game with the rating player of the week on the bench.
Interesting to see whether she will sit for the remainder of the half or whether she'll come back in at about the 2-minute mark.
Jashari Green, quick hands, and tied up. We will go the other way. And the Beacons have been porous with the basketball. The offense has come to a halt, not even a slow, but a almost complete halt here in period number 2. And Southern Maine has taken it to them on the interior, the dribble drive as well as the interior passing and some nice post-ups inside. Lockhart off the dribble, kicks to the right corner. This one rattles its way out on the shot attempt from Rowe. And coming out of the scrum with it is Gonzalez. Finds Farina, nearly carried the basketball, but they don't call her for it. Olivier, the quick trigger. Oh, the Beacons got to get a couple of these to go down. Olivier hit one, but she needs to hit a few more. See if the Beacons can string together 1 or 2 consecutive stops followed by scores.
UMass Boston just 1 of 7 in the period here. They've got 2 points to the Huskies 15, and it's not sure what's more alarming here, that they've only taken 7 shots or that they've shot just 1 of 7.
Better ball movement and a nice 3 from the left corner by Jackie Luckhart. She's taken her licks in this one, but she has extended the lead to 14. Maybe it was the announcer's jinx, Milton, but we talked about the Beacons coming out. The more sprightly was the word I used of the 2 teams. And since then, things have been quite the opposite.
And we talked about the turnover battle here, about UMass Boston having, Southern Maine having a edge of about 5 turnovers per game. UMass Boston's turned the ball over 12 times here. Southern Maine, just 4.
And things do not get easier after this. You will go to the undefeated Rhode Island College Anchor women. They are still a perfect 12-0 in conference. They are receiving votes in the D3 Hoops Top 25 poll. So as this one goes down with a beautiful floater in the painted area by Amy Fleming, the Beacons are now down 33-17.
And Southern Maine here shooting 62% in this second quarter.
Farina picks up her dribble. Tried to get about a 1-foot pass, and that's going to be a double dribble.
Saw the open lane. It was a little bit too tempting, but there was a reason the lane was open. And this second quarter has turned into an absolute nightmare for the Beacons here. 20-2 advantage for Southern Maine.
Beacons have 2 minutes to get some kind of momentum and make our conversation with Heather Jacobs at halftime just a little bit more bearable potentially. I would not be surprised if she does not talk to us, and she has every right to do so. As frankly, I assume that she's going to want to get in there and talk to her team, and we'll of course be very brief with her. If she does take the time, we will thank her for it profusely. As Milton said, this second quarter has gotten away from UMass Boston. There's still plenty of basketball to play, but you get the feeling that you got to take something into that halftime break. The Beacons were up in this one 10-2, and since then, 31-7. Olivier inside with 5 on the shot clock. Dixon fades and hits. Need a lot more of Meg Dixon.
And that's a bailout play right there. That's Dixon going for her 8th and 9th points because the offense wasn't generating any chances.
Flash play to the right corner. Getting it back and dribbling inside is Fleming. Goes to the left short corner. Probably a foul, but no, Michelle Rowe does not get the bump her way. And then I think she commits the foul herself. I think the Beacons are going to get 2 free throws, and if there's a time to knock down your shots from the charity stripe, it is right here.
And Michelle Rowe's a name that we have not called as much as we would have thought at the start of the game. Victoria Harris, on the other hand, has already equaled her scoring average, her 8th best in the conference scoring average. She's got 12 points. She has made 4 of 4 from the field, 4 of 4 from the line, 4 rebounds to go along with it. And Southern Maine has done a decent enough job in her absence here. She went to the bench with a couple of fouls.
2 clutch free throws, and I say clutch because when you need points, you take them however you get them. Ryla Gonzalez hits both. Cuts the lead down to 12. Boy, if the Beacons could get this back inside double digits in the next 40 seconds, that would be a huge momentum boost potentially. Ball was tipped, now is possessed in the right corner by Luckhart. It's a turnover, and Dixon should have the easy layup the other way. She gets hit and one!
You worried for just a moment that extra dribble was going to allow Luckhart to catch up. It did, and it winds up being a good thing for the Beacons. It winds up being one of those from-behind fouls that you really wish you hadn't given because it's easy to finish through and sends Meg Dixon to the charity stripe.
The Beacons getting a nice late push inside the final minute and a half, and they have cut it back into single digits. And hey, it's still been a disappointing quarter, but things will look a little bit brighter if the Beacons can finish off with a stop. Shot clock is off. 20 seconds to go in the opening half. 33-24 Southern Maine. Rowe possesses at the right elbow. Kicks it back to Jeffico. Inside. Too strong, and the Beacons might have 7 seconds. Oh, they turn it right back. 5 seconds. Is there another buzzer beater for Southern Maine? Not this time. It deflects, and that will do it. Couple opportunities late for Southern Maine, but they can't cash in. And the Beacons do score the last 7 points of the first half to make it 33-24. We will take a brief pause. We will see if Coach Jacobs is available, and if not, we will still have plenty to come on the halftime show. Don't go anywhere. After 20 minutes, it's Southern Maine 33 and UMass Boston 24.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I know how powerful words can be. The term gay doesn't mean stupid, lame, or less than.
So I pledge to speak up if I hear the term gay used in a derogatory way or any other homophobic terms.
If you can play in Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and my teammates unconditionally accepted me as part of their family. So now I pledge to do the same for others. If you can play in Division III.
Cheer for the stumbles, the he shoulda had that's, and the tears that linger. For in those moments, greatness lies. There, you will find the provoked, the determined, the unified. It's in those moments that champions are born.
The University of Massachusetts Boston, with its scenic oceanfront campus, easily accessible to downtown Boston, is recognized as a model of excellence for urban public universities. 16 NCAA Division III sports are part of the more than 100 student organizations that create an engaging campus life in America's biggest and best college town. UMass Boston, Boston's urban public research university for the 21st century.
Being a part of the different activities and organizations that I've been a part of, I'm actually able to see myself where I'm like, hey, I actually can make a change. I'm one person that can make a difference.
Division III has helped me to develop teamwork skills, critical thinking skills, time management skills.
It's not just about basketball, or it's not just about school, it's about developing yourself as a person altogether.
And we welcome you back inside Clark Athletic Center Gymnasium. Milton's headed down to see if Coach Jacobs will join us for a brief chat at halftime. So still waiting on that, and if not, we'll just send things right back up here, and we'll go through all the things that happened in that first half, because what a back and forth roller coaster first half that we had here at Clark Athletic Center Gymnasium. The Beacons led it by a score of 10-2 before the next, or 31 of the next 38 points would be scored by Southern Maine. And after that, the Beacons would rally late, score the last 7 to cut the deficit to 33-24. While we wait for Coach Jacobs, we will still take a look at some highlights. We've got some highlights from this one coming up in just a little bit, but we do want to take a look at Meg Dixon again. Who else would we take a look at? She has been a star all year long. And we will take a look at the highlights from her 35-point game against Castleton a few weeks back. Let's take a look at those. And as Spartans turn it over. 2-on-2 the other way. Dixon, he pulls from long range. And hits the rebound. That is her 100 three-point attempt of the season. Castleton tries to exit. Green goes through a double team and draws the foul. Got that rebound. The three. Nails it well out. Dixon cracks it down. And a nice pass inside. Coming around a series of picks. It's Dixon. What a great play design. Marina. Resets the thinking about the shot. Now goes into the double team where Dixon still burns away. Inside. Green goes inside. That's a pretty move. Picked up on the roll. Marina. Well off the mark. Bishara gets blocked from behind. Dixon picks it. Ball coming free. Basketball. Gotta give him more credit than that. As the Beacons forced a turnover and a lead. Bishara Green. What a pass. Thought about that for a second before thinking better. Sullivan picks Dixon. Shooting 12. Beacons coming out on fire. Green. This is his long Gonzalez. Somebody moves. That's just moving in the moment for the Beacons. Dixon can raise something. What a great hesitation move and one. Left side. Nice pick from behind. Dixon's going to have an easy way up on the other end. 20 minutes. Marina. Dixon. Spins. Lays it up. And it hit the mid-range jumper. A couple leads on the 14. Dixon. Answers. Trying to cross over Marina. No such luck. Gives off the buzz. Who lays it in? Sullivan. Wide open. Marina. Picks it. And then Negro starts. Here comes Negro again. How about that flick? He's got it as low as 10 after that 9-1 in the first half. Pass from Dixon. Dixon. Switching on the nerve. There's a pass to Sonny Green. To Jashari Green for 2. Dixon gets past one defender. Gets two. Plays it. Now it's a step. Balloon inside. Block from behind. Roots for Dixon. Then kicks to Charlie Green. Takes it off the bounce. Misses it up. Goes up for a second look. Dixon. For three. Yes! Down by Negro. Second look at Dixon. Off the dribble. Gets inside. What a pass! From my side. There it is! Dribble drop. Dixon. Brooklyn. Ella Gonzalez. Didn't see her as much in the second half, but had a great first half. (33-24), the halftime score inside Clark Athletic Center Gymnasium. Milton Posner went down there for nothing to see if he could talk with Coach Jacobs, but understandably went back to the locker room to meet with her squad. So we will hopefully have the ability to meet with her post-game, hopefully after a Beacons comeback, as they currently find themselves down 9 points. But Mason Stelf, Milton Posner with you on the Beacon Broadcast Network, part of the LEC Network, on this Thursday night. No doubleheader tonight. This is a game that got rescheduled due to the many COVID postponements that have occurred throughout the season. So just the one game tonight, no men's game to follow. But that doesn't mean we don't have plenty of action still to come, as the Beacons got off to a hot start, then went cold, and Southern Maine built a 14-point lead before the Beacons answered with some late buckets of their own. Meg Dixon getting a nice fadeaway jumper, followed by the and one. And as we about halfway through our halftime, what did you think, Milton, about the kind of up and down, rickroll, rickshaw ride type of first half that we had there?
I think it, in a lot of ways, not to make assumptions here, but if you're a team coming into a back-to-back, 2 games in 2 nights, which most of the time you don't have to do, it seems a logical thing that you would try to go hard from the gate, try to overcompensate for being maybe worried about how much energy you've got left in the tank, and then kind of immediately crash. And that's sort of what we saw coming out. First 5 minutes, the Beacons were very good. Next few minutes, they were starting to fade a little bit. Southern Maine drew even. And then for the next 10 minutes of game time, we saw the Huskies completely overwhelm the Beacons, disrupting their passes, making them turn the ball over constantly. 13-5 is the turnover margin right now. We saw the Huskies forcing turnovers as well as dogging the driving lanes, making everything difficult for UMass Boston. And so the Beacons are going to have to figure out how to play like they did in the first 5 minutes. Not just displaying a lot of energy, but being decisive, passing the ball quickly or driving quickly, making those calls without letting the ball sit in their hands and giving the defense time to surround them.
As we always like to do, we take a look at those first half stats, and they look pretty comparable. It was just a tale of basically a first 5 minutes followed by the next about 18 minutes or so, and then the last couple of minutes as well. So again, call it a rickshaw ride or a roller coaster, whatever you want to do. It was basically the dial was swung in one direction the entirety of the half. It was just didn't know which direction it was going to be in. Beacons and Huskies shooting comparably. The three-point shooting percentage, the Beacons definitely, after Dixon's first, you got another one from Olivier as well, but they really went cold in that second quarter from the three-point arc. Free throw shooting was good for both sides. Beacons are out rebounding the Huskies. They have the size advantage, so that should be expected. But what's really interesting, that number is not at 24 assists. I can assure you that is not correct. The Beacons do not have 24 field goals, but it's the turnovers. We talked about it in the opening, and at the end of the day, doesn't matter what the game is, it doesn't matter what you highlight, the turnover battle usually dictates the winner of a basketball game.
And what it's doing right now is it's dictating the shot count. 37 attempts from the floor for Southern Maine, just 26 for UMass Boston. That's where the game is being decided right now, absolutely. UMass Boston, and that's, by the way, not even taking into account the number of second and third tries that UMass Boston was getting early on because of their prodigious offensive rebounding. They started off 4-1 in that category. They're now trailing it. Same goes for the defensive rebounds here. They're actually holding a decent enough margin, but it's the offensive rebounds, the second chance points, where the Huskies very much have caught up and taken away what was one of UMass Boston's only remaining strengths in this game. So everything UMass Boston was doing to ensure the most possessions in the first 5 minutes is something they have to continue doing here.
We take a look at the player stats. That assist number, it's 4-4 between the two sides. A lot of solo offense, putbacks, not necessarily a lot of assists for either side. Meg Dixon leading the way as is expected with her 12 points. Victoria Harris matching that, so the two leading scorers have been as advertised, but it's been a lot harder for Meg Dixon to get going. Harris really got going, didn't score her first points until the last minute plus of the first quarter, but then turned it on in the second before she had to exit with 4+ to go because of foul trouble. Tamara Gold, 9 points, mentioned she has scored every single one of her points all season in the last now 7 games. So she has come on hot. Paige Olivier had those 5 in the first quarter, but was basically non-existent in the second, as was most of that UMass Boston team. Meg Dixon with the 5 boards. Harrison Lockhart crashing the glass for Southern Maine. But everybody was getting into the act in that second quarter for the Huskies. The Beacons struggled until the last couple of minutes, but they did enough to get those last 7 points. Dixon herself getting a bunch of them, the and one as well as the short corner jumper on the right side, getting at least 5 of those 7 to get UMass Boston back within 10. And it's worth noting that Southern Maine is coming off of a back-to-back of their own. Now, mind you, it was against Plymouth State, which is the team currently at the bottom of the conference table, 0-11. So you got a lot of bodies in there playing minutes that you wouldn't necessarily normally play. So a lot of these big-name players for Southern Maine did essentially not have to play your traditional back-to-back, as they got some good rest yesterday. But just as UMass Boston is playing their second game in 24 hours, so is Southern Maine. And that will be the story for the rest of the year as well. Southern Maine has 8 games in the final 16 days of the season. UMass Boston has 7 in that time span. So all the COVID postponements, all the games being moved around has led to a backloaded second half, or really final third of this season. So there's still a lot more basketball to play, but UMass Boston, you've got to say, Milton, really need a turnaround here because you're going up against Rhode Island College in 48 hours time, and let's be honest, that is going to be a tall task for anyone in the conference, let alone a team coming off of a tough win at home or a tough loss at home.
And as much as you'd like to think of it as a statement game, and it is, it's also a necessity game. You're talking about a team in UMass Boston right here. They're 5-5 in conference. They're trying not so much to try to catch the teams ahead of them. They're sitting fourth. They're 3 games behind the third-place team. There is a very clear top third here in the conference in Rhode Island College, EastCon, and UMass Dartmouth. However, Southern Maine is close to them. Southern Maine 4-4 in conference. Castleton's 4-6. So UMass Boston trying to get favorable seeding in that tournament. They need a win here today. If they can't beat Southern Maine, then a win over Rhode Island College suddenly starts seeming like a must-have, and that's not a position you want to be in until you absolutely have to, ideally late in the tournament. So you'd like to see them get off to a faster start here in the second half. And I think Jashari Green's got to be a part of that. You never want to put too much on somebody who's returning from an injury, even a minor one, but she's had a very tough time so far. 2 personal fouls, 4 turnovers, just 1 field goal. They need good contributions from her. She is the second option on this team, and she needs to play like it if they want to get back into this game.
And with the results yesterday, the Beacons actually dropped in just a 24-hour period from 4th down to 6th. So they're tied with Castleton at 5-6 in that 5th place spot. A half game, or now actually a full game in the loss column behind Southern Maine and Keene State, who the Beacons still have to play twice in the last 2 games of the season, are just 2 games in the loss column behind UMass Boston. So it is a jumble between spots 4 and 7 ahead of WestCon and Plymouth State at the bottom of the table. So this is a big game and a big 20 minutes on this Thursday night here just south of Boston. Monesteem travels. Did not see her for much of the second quarter because of 2 fouls herself. First action back, first possession, and she walks with it. 33-24, Southern Maine on top. That one's flipped up a little bit nonchalantly toward Harris, and probably rightfully in that situation, goes out of bounds for a turnover.
Got more turnovers than a North End Bakery here going in the first half, and whichever team gets under control first is going to have an asset here. Remember, the shot percentages from the first half pretty comparable. It was turnovers and therefore possessions that made the difference.
Monesteem on the motion offense. Lays it up, gets it to fall off the rim, sadly, but Dixon gets upended on her way down with the offensive rebound, and that's a huge foul. Meg Dixon just drew the third on Harris with 9:14 to go in the third.
Harris going to go to the bench now.
Always interesting. What do you do in a situation like that? Samantha Norris, 7th-year head coach for the Huskies, has been very consistent. As soon as a player has gotten in foul trouble, they have headed to the bench and they have not come back for an extended period of time. So it's a different philosophy, but it's probably the more traditional philosophy. Obviously, all these new age coaches, and Samantha Norris is one of those up-and-comers in the coaching profession, but she has that old-timer mentality. If you're in foul trouble, you sit down until we can trust you can go back out there and finish out the ball game. Sunny Green goes inside the paint. On the pass to Farina. How about that board? And Jashari Green, with the player going down in front of her row, cashes in off the window.
And not to be overlooked was Sunny Green, who secured the first offensive rebound on that possession, recognizing the three-pointer did not feel good out of her hand and chasing down the loose ball to extend the possession.
Lockhart to Aceto. Now on the dribble drive, Fleming flings it up too strong, and an offensive or defensive foul. We'll send it down the other way. We'll see who they get. It's going to go against Jeffico. Just her first, but that is the second team foul of the quarter on Southern Maine. Beacon still trail it by 7, but they have crept back in this, and it is now much more of a ball game than it looked like about 4 minutes of game time ago.
Now the question for the Beacons, how well can they manufacture offense with Meg Dixon off the floor?
Jashari gets into the paint, which is a bit of a misnomer since the painted area does not really exist here at UMass Boston, but it's another offensive rebound and another bucket, and the Beacons have scored the last 11 points.
And here comes Jashari Green. We were talking about this coming out of the break. She has got back-to-back buckets here for this UMass Boston team. Been very influential, and she can get them extra possessions as well. I'd like to see her start driving as in addition to that. She can be very destructive coming downhill from the top of the arc.
Beacons within 5, 33-28, 7:48 to go in the third. Rowe, that's a travel. Yep.
What is that, 4 or 5?
Well, it's in this quarter 4, I believe. We had the Monesteem one first, and we've had 2 since. So I think we're at 3 in the quarter, but it was definitely a travel-heavy first and now third quarter. Nearly a turnover. Wouldn't have been a travel, but would have been the same result. Oh, Monesteem had the look and a little too cute with it, and Coach Jacobs furious.
That was a fantastic bullet pass from Sunny Green, though, right to the hands. It's an easy pass to drop if you're not ready for it, but very much on target there from Monesteem.
Sunny Green does so many little things. You may look at the scoreboard or look at the score sheet post-game and say, how did Sunny Green impact the game in her 30-plus minutes? She does so many intangibles. She has great court vision. She can rebound. She can shoot, even though she's not necessarily relied upon offensively. But it is a thankless job what Sunny Green does night in, night out for this squad.
Absolutely right, and she has that versatility, and so she can be what you need her to be on any given night.
Inbound comes to Franny Ramsdell, and she scores off glass as the buzzer sounds.
And for the Beacons, you can't allow a straight line drive after playing 26 seconds of superb defense. Gotta close the possession out.
On the step back. That's a nifty step back from 18.
And that's not really her game either, but still looking very nice doing it.
That is just about the limit of Jashari Green's range. She does not have a three-pointer on the season, and that's the closest she'll get to one. As that one is put nicely off the square and in from Jackie Lockhart. Sunny inside. Tried to draw the foul, but I think that was the right no call that time as she flipped it up wildly. 37-30 Southern Maine. Beacons back into their man-to-man defense. Spreading the offense out wide is Southern Maine. Dixon got a hand on it, but just tracking it down was Maria DeJeffica. Lockhart captains the offense up top with 6 to go on the clock. Ramsdell kicks, DeJeffica hoists. Dixon got the hand up late, but did just enough. Jashari Green to Dixon in transition. She pulls, and it's off the mark. Really the only player on the team who's okay with shooting that shot.
And it's really not a wise shot. Even if she had been behind the arc instead of it being a long 2, you've got size and speed and skill advantages over the players. We got a bank-in shot there from Franny Ramsdell. But Dixon's got the advantage there on the break. She's got to take that to the basket, force her to either play superb defense or put you on the line.
It's one of those really painful 4-point swings is you don't score in transition one way and then give up the nice move inside. The 3 from Olivier. That's probably the biggest shot of the day as Olivier cuts the deficit down to 6.
UMass Boston's first three-pointer in at least a quarter's worth of game time.
That's a foul on Olivier. She got the hands going down, and telltale sign is gold. We'll head to the line, but that should come after the media timeout. Both teams going to make some subs on the other side as we hit a short break. 39-33, Southern Maine on top midway through the third.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I know how powerful words can be. The term gay doesn't mean stupid, lame, or less than.
So I pledge to speak up if I hear the term gay used in a derogatory way or any other homophobic terms.
If you can play in Division III. I'm a Division III student athlete, and my teammates unconditionally accepted me as part of their family. So now I pledge to do the same for others. If you can play in Division III.
We look ahead to what's coming up next. We've mentioned the bout with the Rhode Island College Anchor Women coming up in 2 days' time. That is an afternoon tip on Saturday, getting to the end of the week. So 1 o'clock tip on Saturday afternoon right here inside Clark Athletic Center Gymnasium. That'll be followed up by the rematch up in Southern Maine, 5 o'clock 4 days after that. And then the first of two against Keene State College. We'll follow that one up on February the 18th at 3:30. But we have lots of games that are just filtering into the schedule. So in addition to all that, you're going to have actually a duo game against Keene State on the 18th and 19th. But we are getting into the closing stages of the season for both these squads. Gould at the line. Missed the first, hits the second. Gould into double figures. Has really come on late. The Gorham, Maine native, the senior. What a time to really make your contributions felt then late in your final season. Dixon. Swarming defense from Southern Maine. Inlet pass to Farina. She tried to spin it home. Does not have the strong left hand to finish there, so she tried to flip it and spin it with the right, and it didn't go down.
You can see there with Dixon with the length to throw those sorts of wraparound passes there. Something you'd like to see her do a little bit more. She's the only one who's been consistently going throughout this game.
I will say this. The MVP of this game, if Southern Maine ends up winning, is absolutely Katie Bagley. And she might do it without a single shot attempt because her job has been to limit Dixon and everything that Dixon has. She is the leading scorer on the court, but everything she has had to work for. Sunny Green from distance. Yes!
And on her fourth try, Sunny Green finally drains one, and this could be the perimeter spark that the Beacons have been looking for. The lead's down to 4 now.
Well, you highlighted in the opener, Milton, how getting extra contributions from downtown besides Dixon was that third key to the ball game. And now threes from Dixon, Olivier, and Sunny Green, along with that very long two that might as well have been a three from Jashari Green. Beacons turn it over that time. We tick down to 3 minutes. Sullivan commits the personal and one. How about the day for Amy Fleming? She has not necessarily featured as much. I thought that was Gold for a split second, but it is Fleming. And with Harris on the bench, we're most likely to see a little bit more of Fleming for as long as she is out.
And Fleming 14th in the conference in scoring here at just a touch under 10 per game. Kat Sullivan heading to the bench for the Beacons with her third foul. Has not been a great return to play for her. Couple of turnovers, has not yet scored.
Offensive rebound on the free throw. That's shooting yourself in the foot there. DeJeffico in the corner, blows past Farina, collected by Ramsdell, who gets it back. Franny thought about it, gets inside, flips it up, and in with the left hand. And timeout, Heather Jacobs. She is fuming at her team, as the lead that was just a few seconds ago down to 4 has been re-extended to 8. That should become the full timeout, as it is the first coach-called timeout of the second half. So we will take a brief 30-second break with these players and come back on the other side. 44-36 Huskies late in the third.
Something I discovered in myself is that if I have a goal, and I can accomplish it.
It's a well-rounded experience.
At a Division III school, you primarily a student athlete, so the school is really shaped around you developing yourself as a complete individual.
It helps a lot that you have a family with your team that can guide you.
You can follow UMass Boston all year long, not just for basketball season, but now we are getting to less than a month away from the start of spring sports, and you'll have everything: baseball, softball, men's lacrosse, along with track as well, that you can follow all year long on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, at UMass Beacons, and of course beaconsathletics.com for all the constant scheduling updates, which we hope will be kept to a minimum in the spring, but that almost feels like wishful thinking at this point.
You ever feel like they should rename the sport of softball? It's very decidedly not a softball.
Oh, boy. Well, we've gotten into that stage, and yes, I think everyone has thought that at some point. But then again, football is played 95% of the time with everything but your feet. So, hey. Here we are. Americans can't name things. Don't let Americans name anything.
Well, the rest of the country seems to have figured out the football discrepancy for themselves. It's mostly just Americans being as stubborn as they are about that as they'd be about the metric system.
I was going to say, we're going to get into a metric system debate, aren't we? We are going to not do that and get back to the action as the Beacons now trail by 6 after the nice wraparound finish inside by Jashari Green, who, again, has come through in big moments for UMass Boston in this game when they have needed to stem the tide, as this one flings right through the goalposts of the waiting arms of Carrie Ann Farina. It's Super Bowl day. Super Bowl weekend. What can I say? There's going to be some football references here.
And you know, Jashari Green's able to get those sorts of finishes just because Southern Maine, especially with Harris off the floor, just has so few players above 1.75 meters tall that they really can't contest at the basket that well.
Oh, boy. He's gone full metric now. I'm sorry, fans. I know we've criticized our own systems a lot, and now we're talking meters. This one, we'll talk about that one from about 22 feet away. Rattles out, gets the pass back. Fleming blocked the second time, went right under the basket. And how about that take in the left hand from Ramsdale? And there's going to be a technical here? Yes, there is. Maybe a taunting call? They're going to call a technical, I think, for taunting on Luckhart. She can't believe it. This is 2022. I'm not going to go into my own basketball philosophies in this one. I would go on for the rest of this game, and frankly, as the color commentator, that's your job, Milton. But I don't like that call.
Tell you what, you give me your opinions, and then I will deliver it as an opined.
I don't think we need to go back into the just rough guy Pistons days of the early 2000s where you could say or do anything and get away with it, but
including assault players.
Right, but at the same time, like when you're pumped up, unless we can't hear the court unless she said one of those choice words that you can't say. I see no reason why, after a nice play like that and a nice dribble drive from your teammate, where you can't get a little bit pumped up. And you know what? You can rub it in the opponent's face a little bit. You know what? These are really tough young women. They can handle it. I can tell you that.
I think as we see Farina there taking a pass there and missing the left-handed layup, I think a lot of it depends on the ones that never really make sense to me are the ones where you are flagging someone for just celebrating in general. There should be leeway for that, as Jashari Green slaps that one out of bounds. It'll stay here. It's the ones where if you're going to the opponent and actually taunting them, and you're specifically looking at them, pointing at them, trying to get into it with them in a way that might legitimately cause retaliation. Exactly, and then the game gets out of hand. That's going to be a little bit different. But if you're just celebrating kind of emphatically, yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I don't think that's worth penalizing.
And if Jashari Green, who triggers from 3, wanted to celebrate that emphatic stuff, I would not have been upset with that at all, as Dixon grabs the rebound and finishes off the window for 2. The Beacons, they haven't come all the way back, but they have slowly but surely gotten this lead down. It's been as low as 4. This one with quick hands, and how about that? With a hand in her face, Amy Fleming has come alive in the third.
Lockhart, Harris, Ramsdell, Gould, all with double-figure scoring right here for the Huskies.
Monestein clanked that one off the front rim, then off the backboard and out. 5 seconds to go in the third. Ramsdell gets inside. That one's going to come up well short, and with just a tenth of a second on the clock, this one goes out of bounds. It'll stay on this end of the floor, but without a tip, this one will end. No fouls either, although the Beacons have only committed 2 in the quarter. But just stay away. Cannot catch and shoot. Nope, cannot score. Doesn't matter if it went in. 48-41, the scoreline after 3. So the Beacons cut it to as low as 4. Southern Maine currently cushioning themselves with a 7-point advantage as we head to the 4th. We'll be right back on the other side. 10 minutes to go in regulation. Beacons trail by 7.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
(48-41) the score after 3. At one point in the second quarter, Southern Maine had been outscoring UMass Boston in that period by a score of 20-2, but the Beacons were able to weather that storm, score the last 7 points of the third, and start the 4th hot as well. And this is still anybody's ball game heading into the 4th, Milton.
Yeah, it really is, and UMass Boston getting the turnovers under control has been a big part of that. We talked about a 13-5 rather, margin coming into the third quarter. In that third quarter, it was just pausing here to do a little bit of mental math. Only 3 turnovers here for the Beacons. That's huge. They got to have as many shots as the Huskies did. They were both 7 of 19 from the floor, and it allowed them to keep pace, trim just a tiny bit into that lead. But they've got to tighten things up a little bit more. They've got to seize back that rebounding advantage. Remember, they have the height advantage. They have the length advantage. And if the Huskies are going to keep driving around him, they've got to make him pay in other ways.
Jashari Green, Carrie Ann Farina, Meg Dixon, Vienna Monesteem, and Sunny Green out there for Coach Jacobs. Farina got a hand on the basketball, but finishing anyway through it was Harris.
And Harris coming back here, 5 of 5 from the floor now. She has not missed from the floor or the stripe.
Monesteem travels on her way to the hoop. Second straight quarter where the opening possession has resulted in a Vienna Monesteem travel. This is a Southern Maine team that only has 1 player, Harris, who averages in double figures, and yet they only have 5 players who have scored in this game. 4 of them are in double figures. So Southern Maine doing things a little differently than they're used to take this 9-point edge.
This is one of the weirdest looking box scores I've seen in a while there. Is another bucket coming in there from Fleming, who's trying to join that double-digit club.
Still 5 players, that's it, who have scored for Southern Maine, and 1 more bucket for Fleming, and they'll all be in double digits. Well balanced.
Katie Bagley, game winner. You heard it here first.
Again, she may be the MVP of the game. She has been all over Dixon. Wasn't there, but Dixon still had her shot altered. Monesteem from 8 feet out, cashes in.
UMass Boston here having the scoring be much more evenly distributed. Same goes for the rebounding.
Outright is Aceto. She's been quiet. This player has not. Franny Ramsdell. Great on the crossover. Loves to get inside, use the left. Out top to Jeffico. Thought about it twice. Now gets inside to Harris. She picks up her dribble. Oh, if that went down, well, everything would have today for Harris. Gets her first field goal miss of the day, and the Beacons have a brief 5-on-4. Farina pulls up. Kicks left. Sunny Green inside. Gets hit and one. And the player that committed the foul took the brunt of the hit, too. I think she might have gotten an elbow from Sunny Green right to the face. I think it's Franny Ramsdell.
Indeed it is. Yeah, that's a big hit here. She's going to be tended to. I think you're right about that. It may have been a hit to the face here. She's not grabbing at anything in particular. She just got hit hard. And Sunny Green's solid. Sunny Green is nothing to sneeze at coming towards you. And it's great finish for her through traffic. The lefty finish bringing the lead a little bit closer now. It's a 7-point game. And a great decision to pass up the 3 in transition, recognizing that the rim protector Victoria Harris was not back yet after taking that fall down the other end. And getting up now is Ramsdell.
But if Sunny Green doesn't hit that 3 in the third, the defense might slack off a little bit, and she doesn't even get that opportunity to drive inside and get the finish. And she still might get 3 out of it.
And this is the value. If they don't respect your 3-point shooting, there's so much there's so much less that you can do with that. There's a reason that Meg Dixon can drive, even though she's not necessarily the quickest player out there on the court. It's because everyone in the conference understands what she can do from downtown. They know she hits 3 3-pointers a game. They know she's the only one with enough attempts to qualify on the leaderboard, and that therefore she's leading it. She is the most dangerous sharpshooter in the conference. So what do? They close hard, and it gives Dixon an opportunity to drive and distribute to the teammates.
Sunny at the line for one more. Completes the old-fashioned 3-point play. Beacons once again back within 6. They've cut it as low as 4. That was when it was 40-36. We've played a little bit of back and forth basketball since. Olivier is back out there as well for Coach Jacobs. Drive inside, left-hand finish. Clanks off front iron from that vantage point anyway, with Farina getting the board to Jashari Green on the cross and the finish. Nifty move from Jashari.
And a sidestep there. Jashari Green, a little bit of a bowling ball driving to the basket sometimes, and it can result in charges. There, the finesse to go along with the strength.
Samantha Norris has seen enough over the last couple of possessions. She calls the timeout. That should result in the opening media timeout of quarter number 4. 52-48. UMass Boston climbs right back into it.
College has given me the flexibility to pursue my passions and my interests, and I've recreated my identity for myself aside from just being an athlete.
My greatest personal discovery has been that I am capable of doing things that I didn't know I was capable of doing.
To be able to study what I wanted to and continue to play the sport I love, all of those things came together very nicely in one package in Division III.
The two teams huddled up. Southern Maine around their head coach Samantha Norris. Beacons around theirs, Heather Jacobs. Both these two young up-and-coming coaches. Heather Jacobs taking on a very interesting project after her years building up the program at D1 Wagner, whereas Samantha Norris, she's been a little bit everywhere. Spent a couple of years as the director of basketball operations at the University of Vermont. Also coached at Adelphi at the D2 level. Also started her head coaching career at Daniel Webster, which is a school that doesn't even exist anymore. They went bankrupt back in 2017 and were absorbed by the New Hampshire system of schools. So
we want to clarify this was not her fault.
No, absolutely not. At that time, she was at Adelphi down or over in New York coaching for the Panthers. Southern Maine looking for a bucket. Beacons have scored the last couple to get it as close as they have all game. That one too strong from DeJeffico, and who else? Jashari Green, who has been the star along with Sunny Green in this fourth quarter, gets the rebound.
It's an interesting defensive strategy there from the Beacons, kind of conceding the middle and then swarming the ball once you have.
Beacons, this is probably the best lineup that they can put out there. Jashari Green did not start, but she's been excellent in this game. And there she is again. Gets inside, draws contact, and finishes anyway.
What did we say? That she was going to be the spark plug. She was going to need to be the key in this second half. She has got 10 points, make that 12 points, 10 of them in the second half.
She tried to go for the back tap that time, and too easy for Jackie Lockhart back in to finish on the easy layup.
And the back tap, not necessarily a bad idea, but you do it when there's a back line of defense there. Nobody rotated down. Suicide steal is just that.
Dixon, quick trigger. She has not scored in this fourth quarter. Left that one just a few inches short. Clinks off front iron. The three on the way, no. This is not a Southern Maine team that likes to shoot a lot of threes. You look at the two teams, Southern Maine on the season has only shot 281 threes. The Beacons have shot 353 of them, so 70-plus more threes on the year for the Beacons. Olivier, speaking of threes, triggers, nearly got it to go. I think she thought it was in. She started backing off like Steph Curry, but it clanks off, and another
we got our
Southern Maine player down
here.
Is it Lockhart again?
Grab
Lockhart or?
It's Lockhart. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's Fleming. It's Amy Fleming. She's grabbing the left ankle there after a fall.
I was going to say, I feel like Lockhart and Franny Ramsdell have been down each about 2 or 3 times, but Fleming joins that crew. Might have just turned her ankle the wrong way. Hopefully it's the ankle. Looks like it's the left ankle. Definitely better than the knee, certainly. And it's anyone who's watched women's basketball for an extended period of time knows that's the area of major concern. But I think she just turned it, might have collided. And hopefully she's okay as she's about to get help to the feet by the training staff and her head coach, Sam Norris.
Looks like she's putting some amount of weight, but not necessarily her full weight on it. Hopefully it's just a roll. It's just something minor. She'll be back in their next game, which would be, we double check, is going to be against East Con in a couple of days. It's an afternoon game.
Yeah, UMass Boston, they have the double up against the Owls of Keene State. Southern Maine has the same against Eastern Connecticut. So they'll play at East Con in 2 days' time on the 12th, and then follow that up 48 hours later for a 5 p.m. start down in Southern Maine on the 14th. And then it'll be UMass Boston again as they complete their home and home. So the good thing is that both these teams are going to get very familiar with just a couple of teams. Only have to go through the scouting reports, 3 more times? Because you play the same team multiple times in back-to-backs on both sides.
And in a non-COVID season, this isn't something you'd necessarily do.
Nice dart inside by Lockhart, but she tried to go with the right on the left side and didn't get it to go down. Dixon, you can't leave her. Southern Maine gets away with it. Coach Jacobs surprised she's not out there trying to join the party, as she is as active a head coach as you will see. How about that hustle? Farina gets back and draws her second charge of the day.
In this game, folks, getting increasingly interesting here. The lead hovering around 4 points. Looks like they're going to amend this call to a traveling violation instead of a charge. Only really going to make a difference as far as the foul count is concerned. It's Beacon's ball either way. But 5:16 to go here. UMass Boston has stayed within striking distance. Monestein back on the court now to join Dixon and Olivier, Sunny Green, and Farina.
Larkhart and Harris have 3 fouls apiece. The only player with 3 on the Beacon side is Kat Sullivan. As Dixon misses the open 3 and then makes the tough 2 inside.
That is a tricky shot from a balancing perspective, if nothing else.
She has every single weapon on the offensive end that you could ask for. Only has, I believe, 1 3 today, but she's done the damage in other ways. That's what makes her so valuable. Nice pump fake. Missed, though, from Ramsdell in the mid-range, right at the charity stripe. Clangs off back rim, and the Beacons are going to have an opportunity to take the lead from Olivier. Yes, sir! It's great having fans back, isn't it, Milton?
It really is. It's good to have an atmosphere here, and the Beacons bench pitching in as well. Timeout Southern Maine as the UMass Boston has come all the way back, down 16 points with 1:45 to go in the first half. They lead it by 1.
"30-second timeout, so we'll stay right there. But boy, Olivier, the Beacons getting the contributions from 3 that we said that they needed in the opener. Those keys to the game They've calmed down the turnovers, Milton. That was a problem in the second quarter. That's been better. They've been getting contributions from other players. That's been better. They started hot. That was a key to the game. So they're following the keys to the game, and you know what? I think when you and I outline those keys to the game and teams follow them, usually they're pretty successful.
I think so, and for that matter, we were talking even before the keys to the game about that ridiculously wild swing in the all-time series with Southern Maine winning the first 64 games, UMass Boston winning 9 of the last 12. You're getting swings like that in the in-game stats as well. Maybe not quite as drastic, but certainly noticeable.
A 1-point gap separates your Beacons and the Southern Maine Huskies as we tick to the final 4 minutes of regulation. Ramsdell hesitates and finishes.
And a little clever off-arm move there for Ramsdell. Just did get away with it. Sparse enough contact that it didn't get called. That's a clever move there from the guard.
Franny Ramsdell, when she's out there, she makes an impact. How about that impact? Nice play by Harris, and then she throws it right to Farina, who gets hit and will head to the line.
That was a brilliant initial play by Harris, covering up for Ramsdell's defensive miscue, getting turned around on the drive, erasing the shot with a block, and then immediately giving it right back to the Beacons. This is the swing we're talking about, the 4-point swing earlier with the Dixon long 2 in transition leading to the Southern Maine layup. This could be another swing here if Farina can knock down a free throw.
Tamara Gold was called for the foul. That is a good thing from Southern Maine's perspective, as Harris has 3. If she had committed the foul after the turnover, that would have been for 4th. The Beacons even it up once again. We are tied at 56. 3.5 to go. Jashari Green waits to check in. That's a poor pass, and it's picked off, eventually finding Monestein. Farina directs traffic up front. Sunny Green gets pushed through, sets the screen far side for Dixon, who's getting fronted beautifully by DeJeffico. Farina kicks to the left. Now it's Olivier's turn to survey things. Dixon, there's the double team from DeJeffico and Harris. Kicks Farina with 7 on the clock. There's a block from Harris as it goes off underneath the basket and comes right down into a Husky hand.
3rd block of the game for Harris. 2nd in the LEC in blocks per game, and you can see why.
As East Con's starting center that leads the way in that court category. Anna Berry. Well, we knew we were going to get a good game. It has been unpredictable to say the least, but here we are inside the closing stages, all knotted at 56. This one rolls off the front rim. Ramsdell, who's been excellent today, couldn't get the roll that time. May well come down to the final possession. Monestein. Olivier from the other side, another one. She got sick of hitting him right in front of the fans. She says, I'll go hit it in front of my bench. 59-56 Beacons.
Shoulder-mounted flamethrower for the Barry University transfer there. 5 of 9 overall. She's 4 of 7 from 3.
Coming into this one, 39 of her 51 shot attempts were from downtown. That ratio has not gotten any more in favor of the 2s in this one. This one well deep. Dixon, Olivier, they got to cover her. Instead they go Monestein. Sunny Green, another one. Oh, it rolls out. Monestein, can she track down the board? No, it goes to Harris.
What a big, big break for the Huskies here. They'll call for time. That ball halfway down, halfway toward a 6-point lead for the Beacons with 1:40 to go, and they just dodged it.
Beacons on the season 6-11, looking to get back to 500 at 6-6, heading into their battle with a team that's currently receiving votes in the D3 polls. Rhode Island College receiving votes this past week for the first time this season. Only Little East Conference team to have received any votes this season. Southern Maine trying to avoid dropping back to 500 in conference at 5-5. But both these teams coming in with that below 500 record on the season overall. But at this point, you talked about it, Milton, it's all about jockeying for seeding, and 4 through 7 really look like it could go anywhere over the final 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah, and the top 3 teams here, you've got Rhode Island, East Con, UMass, Dartmouth, are far enough ahead that only UMass Dartmouth losing out and UMass Boston or Southern Maine winning out is going to narrow that gap. it's the 4 through 7 teams that can still shake out differently and achieve a little bit more favorable seeding, some favorable matchups in the first round of the tournament.
Southern Maine is not a three-point shooting team, so this, even though it's a three-point game, could effectively be seen as a two-possession effort. Thinking about it, we haven't seen her shoot all day. It was Bagley, and it's nearly turned over. They got to get it up. They don't. That's the end of the shot clock. And the biggest play of the day is a defensive stand for Coach Jacob's squad.
And it was DeGeffigo snagging that deflected pass, not realizing the shot clock was already down to about 2-3 seconds. And now they're going to enter into a full court press to try to force UMass Boston into a turnover.
That is something that UMass Boston has been exponentially better at in the third and fourth quarters. But in a situation like this, when the pressure is on, they are susceptible occasionally. Farina went to the hoop, and she is going to get a little lucky as she blew the layup, but gets the ball back with a fresh 20.
Is it weird to think that that outcome might have been better than
Yes.
her making the layup?
No, that is absolutely correct.
They can burn another 20 seconds here if they like.
As long as they score.
Sure. Very true.
Oh my goodness. Dixon, of all people.
Bad misread there.
Throws it to a player, but not a player in white. Ramsdell to the corner. They can still look inside. Instead, they trigger from downtown. It's way long from Lockhart. Player hits the deck hard, and now they got a foul intentionally, and Jashari Green gets it. They still have one more foul to give with 34.7 on the clock. Southern Maine was hoping that they were going to get the call underneath. The Beacons have not committed a foul this entire fourth quarter, and now Coach Jacobs smartly says, you know what, I want to talk things over and make sure everything is set up exactly how I want it to be.
And part of that may be putting some substitutions out there to make sure her best free throw shooters are out there on the floor. Might be about the inbounds pass, might be about a defensive scheme for what to give up, what to concede, and what to prioritize on the defensive end once Southern Maine gets the ball back. But UMass Boston here, with one free throw, they can make this a two-possession game. And like you've been saying, Southern Maine is not a team that is inclined to shoot a ton of three-pointers. 7th in the conference in that category, 23%. UMass Boston up a few ticks. They're 4th in the conference. They're a lot more comfortable with this. But their three-point defense has been a little bit lacking here, worst in the conference. So could be a ripe setting for a miracle here, but Southern Maine has got the onus is on them to do something that they have not done a whole lot of today.
Meg Dixon shoots just shy of 94%. Paige Olivier is at 87.5%. So those are the targets. Olivier is the trigger woman with Meg Dixon standing at the free throw line. You got 3 set up in a line with Sunny Green out deep. Olivier gets it to Dixon, and she's bumped out of bounds. That nearly turned into a catastrophe for UMass Boston. That is the last foul to give, so Dixon does not head to the line, and we'll do this all again just from the other side of the court. Olivier to trigger the inbounds with Jashari Green, Farina, and Dixon at the free throw line. Sunny Green again back deep at half court. They get it to Dixon. She splits the defense. She nearly turns it over. It's on the floor. A jump ball will keep it with the Beacons, though.
And Jashari Green with the reflexes and the awareness to pounce on that loose ball there and make sure that UMass Boston keeps it. Another timeout here called by Jacobs. Use it or lose it sort of scenario here. With 30 seconds to go, the shot clock's down to 27. We're still in an intentional foul type situation. But this is also the sort of situation where you think maybe go for the steal, be overly aggressive, and the worst case scenario is there's an intentional foul, which is what you're okay with anyway.
Oh, you easily have about 5 to 7 seconds before you have to give it. And obviously, we want UMass Boston to pull this one out, but we're not so naive as to think that they aren't susceptible to a careless turnover. We saw Meg Dixon have one just a minute ago. You want the ball in her hands, but you got to get it to her. And if not, can you trust Jashari Green, Farina, Sunny Green to take care of the basketball, and if they do get fouled, to knock it down from the free throw line? That's a tough place to inbounds the ball for Olivier. She had a brief moment. Now she gets it to Farina. There's a triple team there, and they're going to commit the foul. Got a little bit lucky, did Carrie Ann. She is not the best free throw shooter, though. We mentioned Olivier and Dixon are the two players you'd love to get at the line, but Farina is south of 60% on the year.
We've seen her so far in this game, 2 of 4 from the line. They only really need one. Second one would be nice, but it's extra. You get that second one and you don't commit any turnovers, you're giving them a very difficult hand.
That's a pure shot from Farina. Steps up, ice in her veins, hits the first, makes it the old 2-possession game that is so big in situations like this. Can she hit the second? Yes, she can. How about that from Carrie Ann Farina? And the Beacons lead by 5.
That is absolutely clutch for somebody, like we said, not the best free throw shooter on the season, hasn't been the best free throw shooter tonight, but steps up in crunch time. And now this gets increasingly difficult here for Southern Maine. Just doing a cursory glance down their stat sheet, Jackie Luckhart at 31% from 3. Ashley Aceto, who we have not seen, is at 33%. Katie Bagley, surprisingly enough, we have not seen her attempt, or excuse me, we've seen her attempt 1 3. She's at 35%. She is their best shooter. Everyone else is a below average shooter from beyond the arc. You have to, are they going to go to Bagley here? You have to imagine they're going to keep it in the hands of the Maine guards. But UMass Boston should keep tabs on her. She has got a percentage, at least, if not volume, on par with Dixon's.
Got to move quickly. Your other option is see if you can get it inside to Harris and maybe go for an and one. Beacons just want to avoid fouling.
Very much
That's
so.
for sure. But easier said than done. It's certainly easier said when you're up here in the rafters calling the game and not down there on the floor with all the adrenaline pumping through your veins, trying to close out a game in which at one point you gave up a 20-2 run. Oof. But the difference between the Beacons from early in the season and the Beacons now is that at one point in the season, the Beacons would have caved from that and things would have gone from bad to worse. They still might pull out this game, and they control their destiny, that's for sure. They got to get it in, they do, but it's right to Olivier, and she is perfectly fine with getting the contact.
Fantastic inbound coverage from UMass Boston right there, forcing them into a long lob and a miscommunication there, and now Paige Olivier can make this even more difficult for them with a couple of free throws. And she, like you said, is the one you want on the line here.
Paige, 3 quick dribbles, sets, and hits. Farina hits 2 big ones. Olivier makes it a 6-point effort, and 1 more. No timeouts left for Southern Maine. May put this one to bed, and she does. What an outstanding response from UMass Boston. Down by as many as 16. Again, you do the math. That is a 23-point swing dating back to the final minute 40 of the opening half. They're going to say that Farina stepped on the sideline, but with 12 seconds left, it's not going to mean too much. And this is a statement victory and an incredibly pivotal victory for UMass Boston.
It really is, as there's a foul there from behind by Farina. This is a game against the team nearest them in the standings for practical standings purposes. This means a lot. And going into a game with Rhode Island College, it means a lot that you're not coming in off of a win that you really know you could have had. You're going into a game with a team that's getting votes in the poll. So there's going to be a foul there called against Jashari Green. Will send Ramsdell to the line. You're going into that game against the Yanker women with some amount of momentum here. And UMass Boston can really play them close at that point. They can really do something interesting. If you get a win in that game, you can be the first team to knock off Rhode Island College. Then you're really putting the conference on notice, and they're putting themselves in position to do that.
Rhode Island College won the first game between those two squads before Christmas time and before all the Delta variant, or at that time Omicron variant, took place and basically completely turned the conference schedule on its head. 2 free throws go down, so Heather Jacobs not taking any chances. She'll use another timeout here to set things up. Basically inbound the basketball, get to the other end of the court, knock down a couple of free throws, and head off with a well-deserved victory and one that they absolutely needed coming off of the back of that Castleton game last night, where they fell in a disappointing 53-32 scoreline. Again, that's the team that Meg Dixon had her all-time single-game scoring record against, and the Beacons just couldn't get anything going. So to come back 24 hours later, to get punched in the mouth with a 22 run at one point, and to respond and come out with a victory is truly nothing to scoff at for UMass Boston, who will get back to that 500 threshold in conference should they be able to see out these final 6.3 seconds and set up a date with the undefeated Rhode Island College Anchorwomen on Saturday afternoon right here. Meg Dixon gets fouled, will head to the line, and just needs to finish off this ball game. Not the best day for Meg Dixon, but if you can win with Meg Dixon being largely nullified and not at her best, she's still got 17 points. So that's the beauty of Meg Dixon's game. But you would not say that Meg Dixon certainly will not say that she had her best day. And yet you're going to come out with a victory, and that's important.
Well, she's used to this. We're talking about a player who's put up the same number of points that she has right now. She's put that total up in a quarter this season. She has had games where she's been more on fire than this, but she did plenty. She did enough to get it done. Paige Olivier coming on late to supply the long-range accuracy that put UMass Boston over the top after Jashari Green got them in it with her play down low. Winds up being a fantastic all-around win for the Beacons, and they pulled it out in crunch time.
Ainsley Bryant, along with Meg Kelly, come in for the last couple of seconds as this one's tapped out of play. Southern Maine should have this ball. No, it goes over to the Beacons, so they just need to get this ball in bounds, and that'll do it. Dixon, do they foul? Nope. That'll do it. 65-58. UMass Boston turns things around, and they get a critical home victory here on this Thursday night. A game that was supposed to be played a lot earlier than this. You get the reschedule, force the back-to-back for both these teams, and the Beacons win for the 10th time in the last 14 games against their rivals from Southern Maine. We'll take a brief pause. We've still got a great post-game show ahead and a nice conversation with Heather Jacobs to come on the other side of this break. Beacons win it by 7. Don't go anywhere.
Moving from Turkey, it was a rough journey for me because when you don't really speak the language that well and when you don't really fit in the crowd, it's very easy to disappear. But I decided not to give up, and UMass helped me.
Division III allows you to give yourself to other things.
Having that free time allows me to pursue the things that I want to pursue.
Division III athletics affords students the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport.
It allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I know how powerful words can be. The term gay doesn't mean stupid, lame, or less than.
So I pledge to speak up if I hear the term gay used in a derogatory way or any other homophobic terms.
If you can play in Division III. I'm a Division III student athlete, and my teammates unconditionally accepted me as part of their family. So now I pledge to do the same for others.
Hey guys, here with head coach Heather Jacobs after a win over the Southern Maine Huskies. And coach, it was a 20-2 run for the Huskies there at one point. Going into halftime, what was the message to the team to try to get them back on track?
Yeah, I think we just, our game plan, we were a little shaky with what we wanted to do, and we had to sharpen up in those areas, and I think we did a better job. I mean, still room for improvement as always, but I think we did a much better job. And I'm proud of their ability to make those adjustments and take care of what we needed to.
When you're trying to fix the turnover problem, when it's a little bit too sloppy with the giveaways, how does that work functionally for the team? What's the advice to them in that moment?
I mean, we turn the ball over all too often in way too many different ways. So it depends on the situation. It's different, but it's definitely a large area that we need to improve on.
And we're seeing balanced contributions. We're seeing Meg doing what she does. We're seeing Paige Olivier gunning from the outside. We're seeing Jashari in her first game back making a contribution. What does it mean that you can have that kind of balance from your scoring?
I think it's huge. I mean, obviously, there's no secret that Meg's a terrific scorer, but, you know, when she's setting screens for her teammates, I think it only helps us as a team, and then it frees her up eventually later down the line.
Awesome, Coach. Congrats on the win. We will see you back in action against Rhode Island College on Saturday. Mason, back to you.
Thank you.
Awesome,
Thank
appreciate
you. Nice
it.
to meet you.
Something I discovered in myself is that if I have a goal, then I can accomplish it.
It's a well-rounded experience.
At a Division III school, you primarily a student athlete, so the school is really shaped around you developing yourself as a complete individual.
It helps a lot that you have a family with your team that can guide you.
I just wanted to get good grades and to do well. But it also made me realize that I have a lot of career goals.
You're there to get a full college experience, not only participate in your sport, but participate in things outside of that, and it's all about growing as a person.
My coaches have helped me with figuring out who I really am. Their lives are dedicated for us to succeed.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
We welcome you back after a thrilling 65-58 Beacon victory on this Thursday night from Clark Athletic Center Gymnasium. Mason Stalf and Milton Posner. Oh boy, I told myself I wouldn't mess it up
Milton
today.
whom?
Yeah, no, you
What?
didn't. You don't have to participate if you don't want to. It's been a long week. It really has been. It was a long game. It was a game that had so many twists and turns and back and forths and runs galore. I know the old cliche of basketball being a game of runs. Usually you don't give up a 20-2 run and win the basketball game. And really winning going away. The Beacons played the entire second half as the better of the two teams, and they really dominated for essentially 2.5 of the 4 quarters and really 3 of the 4 quarters. And at the end of the day, I would say consistency and putting their head down, fixing the mistakes that they were making on the turnovers. Yes, they still had 19, as you see on those final stats there, but hey, at the end of the day, a win's a win, and you definitely needed that on the back of a disappointing loss against Castleton 24 hours ago, and looking ahead to Rhode Island College on Saturday.
And you mentioned the 20-2 run. It's a run so bad to give that up that I could tell as I was starting to ask Coach Jacobs about it, you can tell someone's wide smiling underneath a mask. It was that sort of thing because it was those runs don't happen by accident. It's a product of everything. You're turning the ball over, you're sloppy, you're tired on the second night of a back-to-back. There's a lot of things going on. There also have to be a lot of things going right to dig yourself out of a 16-point hole. We saw Jashari Green improve her scoring touch on the inside and become a major factor on the offensive glass. We saw Paige Olivier start to shoot like an elite marksman. We saw Meg Dixon continue to find all the little notches in the defense, all the little areas to exploit. And we saw the defense tighten up when they needed it, limit Victoria Harris to just 2 points in the second half. A lot of things had to go right for them to dig themselves out of that hole, and they did.
Beacons end up out-shooting the Huskies in terms of percentage in all 3 facets. They out-rebound the Huskies by 4. They get 7 more assists. They do turn the ball over 5 more times, but if you look at the second half numbers, the Beacons tidied things up in terms of taking care of the basketball. And at the end of the day, the scoreline reflects winning all those different categories. As we take a look at the stat leaders on either side, Meg Dixon, as she always does, even on the days where she's not necessarily having her best offensive day, as Milton mentioned, she's had that many points in a quarter, fascinatingly enough and amazingly enough. But Paige Olivier contributing 16 as well. Jashari Green getting in on the act, particularly in that second half. She had a dozen points herself. Meg Dixon not only contributing on the offensive end, but she's got 9 rebounds. Farina contributing as well. Farina and Green helping out in the assist or the steal and block categories. Everybody that was out on the floor did something good and led to this UMass Boston victory. And on the other side for Southern Maine, they went a little bit against their usual script. They had a bunch of players in double figures, but they could not necessarily get that ulterior scoring to really help and carry those 4 or 5 players that were in double figures. Ramsdell and Harris both had 14. Lockhart at just 5'4" had 12 points as well, and she was getting involved in a lot of different things. Franny Ramsdell with the 8 rebounds, but that does end Victoria Harris's streak of 3 straight double-doubles. Michelle Rowe, who we didn't talk about too much, led the way with assists. A couple of players had some steals. Rowe had 2 blocks as well. But at the end of the day, the Beacons just had the better players at the end of it, whether it's Dixon, Olivier, Jashari Green. Sunny Green got involved in that fourth quarter as well. We didn't necessarily see a ton of Vienna Monestein, but she was still in there defending. Everybody came to play in that fourth quarter for UMass Boston. They turned around a big deficit and came out with a win.
And a surprising amount of this, something we haven't talked about. I mean, we talked about the three-point shooting, but in that respect, it wasn't necessarily that they were doing anything wrong before. They just had some good looks that just weren't going down. They were 2 of 9 from downtown in the first half, 4 of 11 in the second half, and it made enough of a difference because even that difference, which doesn't seem huge on its face, is enough to make them fear your shooting, is enough to open the offensive rebounding game for Jashari Green because so many of your players have to close to the perimeter. There are fewer people in the lane. It all meshes together, and for UMass Boston, the second half meshed together.
It certainly did, and that leads to a marquee matchup with Rhode Island College. 1 o'clock the tip on Saturday. We'll, of course, bring that to you live on the Beacon Broadcasting Network. We will go live with that one at 1:45. But that brings us to a close on this Thursday night from Clark Athletic Center Gymnasium. We thank our outstanding production team, Allie Crawford, our producer, the epic duo of Mary Jo Murphy and Gina Albano, our directors. Allie Crawford also holding down the fort on instant replay. Colin Ford, Lauren Bethay, Danny Colazzo, Sage Sori on cameras tonight with my co-commentator Milton Posner. My name is Mason Stauff saying so long on this Thursday night from Clark. The Beacons win it 65-58.